My name is Steve. Welcome back to my shop and edition number 37 of Shark Bits. In this edition of Shark Bits, I've got some viewer mail, I've got some eBay finds, and a couple of other new purchases. So let's get started. The first thing I've got here is some viewer mail from the UK, and it is Nigel from Go Create Machine Shop. We'll bring this in a little bit. This Go Create Machine Shop. Here's his sticker. I'll get that put up on the board. And he sent me some business cards. This Lion steam locomotive in 5-inch gauge is what he's building. It's a very interesting build. He does a nice combination of machine and hand work to make the pieces, and I really enjoy his content. So some stickers to put on the board. This next item that I'm going to share with you is a set of tools that I purchased from Shars, and they had a Black Friday sale and an extra 20% off, and so I'm going to bring the camera in so I can show you what I've got. Last month in the Shark Bits that I showed that I had purchased an arbor for the ER40 collets for my new horizontal mill, and I hadn't purchased any collets yet, so I picked up this set of collets that runs from 1/16 up through 1 inch, and I got it with an arbor for the R8 so that I can use this on my milling machine. So I say it comes complete with those collets and collet wrench. So that's my big Christmas present to me purchase for this year. Next piece that I picked up from a seller on eBay, this is new, and this is a ER40 collet adapter for the 3-inch Morse taper on my lathe. So I'll be able to use this, the collets on my lathe. Now, the one disadvantage of using this type of a collet on the lathe is that I won't be able to go through all the way. This will be the subject of today's machining portion of the video. I'm going to be building a drawbar for this collet so that I can use it in my Atlas 10-inch lathe. Since I got the horizontal mill, I have an ongoing search for number 9 taper tooling that comes up anytime anything is listed. And a couple of weeks ago I got a listing on this piece that came in end mill holder. And in addition to that, it's actually primarily all R8 tooling. But the reason it came up was because of the number 9 Brown & Sharp taper. But what this is a set of end mill holders for the R8, and I've actually been looking for some because I've run into a situation when I do some heavy milling. I've actually had the milling cutters creep out of the collet, out of the R8 collet, and dig deeper, and that can ruin your day. So anyway, this set came with, get my caliper out so I can measure these. Okay, this one measures, I want to say it's 3/16. This one is 3/8. This one is half. And this one is 5/8. So it gives me a pretty nice start on the end mill holders. And then I mentioned that this is a number 9 Brown and Sharp taper. And this is also 5/8. In addition, one of my viewers, Andy, had sent a couple to me. I showed these earlier, and that's a 1/2 and a 3/8. So I got 3/8, 1/2, and 5/8 end mill holders for the Brown and Sharp number 9. This is an R8 to Morse taper number 2, and I'll be able to use that in the mill because I've got a real nice drill chuck that has a number 2 Morse taper on it. So I'll be able to use the smaller drill chuck with that. So let's set that one aside. Those of you that are following me know that I'm working on a steam engine. And in a recent forum, I had asked about a source for steam fittings because I don't have any of the fittings that are going to be necessary to run this steam engine. And one of my viewers and YouTube creator, his name is Chirpy, suggested that I should make my own. And I knew that, but he shamed me into it. So I ordered some material, some hex stock, and I got 3/16, I've got 1/4, and I got 5/16 brass hex stock to make up some fittings and hardware for the new steam engine. The issue that I have here is a way to hold them in the lathe because the smaller sizes don't lend themselves to putting them in a 3-jaw chuck. Ideally, what I'd like to find are hex collets for the 3AT collet system that I have for my lathe. This is an adapter that fits into my Morse number 3 headstock on the Atlas lathe, and these are the 3AT collets. And I have a pretty complete set of them in fractional sizes. The problem is that I don't have hex, and they are available. However, the only place I've been able to find them from a supplier that's offering them is new, but by the time I pay the tax and the shipping on them, they're going to be darn near $80 a piece, and I just cannot justify that price to make a couple of fittings here and there. So in the meantime, I'm going to be on the lookout for some used 3AT collets for hex stock. I also looked for the ER40 collets in hex, and I don't see that they're even made. But what I did find were some reasonably priced hex collets for 5C. I've got the 3/16, I've got the 1/4. The 5/16 was back ordered, so that'll be a while before I get that one. However, the 5/16 stock I can mount in the 3-jaw chuck with no problem. And in the absence of having a 5C chuck on my lathe, I'm going to cheat. And in my last video you may have seen I did something similar. I'm using my 5C hex collet. So that will go in there and just tighten up the and the nice thing about this is that it will operate as a a through collet. Oops, I gotta. The disadvantage here is that I need to tighten this up before I go put it in the chuck. Let me show you what the setup is going to look like. Now, here's my 3-jaw chuck in the Atlas lathe, and I can put this collet in here. Just have to be careful when you're tightening it up that you get it centered, and that'll give me the ability to machine the hex stock with the collet. A little bit of a sketchy setup, but it works, and I'll make do with it until I can find a reasonably priced collet for the 3AT. Like most of my projects, this one starts out at the bandsaw. I'm using 1144 stress proof. This is one of my favorite materials to use for making tooling. It can be hardened, but it's hard enough that it doesn't need to be. So let's go over to the lathe. I'm going to start by facing off the end here. I've got it set up in my collet chuck. This is that 3AT collet chuck that I showed. And this has the ability to be able to run through with 1/2 inch and smaller material. A 1/2 inch is the largest collet that I have. I'm going to be threading this, so I'm going to put a chamfer on it while I'm here. This end of the drawbar is going to be the end that goes into the adapter, and that is a 12 millimeter by 1.75. So I've got to turn this down to 12 millimeter first, and then we'll cut some threads on it. I'm using a metric micrometer here, which I don't usually use, but I am. I've got to go down to 12 millimeter, and I am at 12.022 right now. So I've got to take another 0.1 per side, which is about 5 thousandths. Let's see how we make out. Okay, I'm right on the money. Now I need to cut 12 millimeter by 1.75. This is not a metric lathe. However, 1.75 millimeter thread pitch is nearly identical to 14 threads per inch. So I'm going to set up and I'm going to start and rough it out at 14 threads per inch, and then I'll finish it off with the 12 millimeter die. So let's get set up to thread. The next thing I'm going to do is take my parting tool and cut myself a little bit of a thread relief here. And that should do it. Looks like my tool is a little bit too low. I'm going to reset it and I'll bring you back. Here's my 1.75 millimeter thread count, and that matches up as close as you can get. I'm going to go ahead and cut these threads almost to their finished size. It's almost there. I'm going to take maybe another 2 cuts and then we'll check it. I think that's as far as I'm going to go with it. Yeah, almost. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to take my 12 millimeter die and I'm going to run that down to clean up those threads. I'll bring it back when I'm set up to do that. Okay, I'm going to run my 12 millimeter die down it. Put some oil on it. Taking a little bit off, not too much. Okay. Clean the threads out. Okay, the threads are all cleaned out. Let's try it on. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to turn the shaft around and we're going to cut half 13 threads on the other end. Got the lathe set up to cut 13 threads per inch now, so half 13. I cut my thread relief and I've got it blued up. Now I'm going to just take a test cut just to make sure that we've got it all set up correctly. Okay, right on the money. Let's cut some threads. I finished threading that shaft, but as you saw in the video, it slipped in the collet. And what I didn't realize is that it actually had been moving a little bit prior to that I didn't see. And although I got usable threads on the piece, I'm not happy with them, so I'm going to end up remaking that off camera. But to keep on moving here, I've got to make a bushing to go in the left hand end of the headstock with a 1/2 inch diameter hole that will fit over the shaft, and this will act as a washer basically to snug the nut up against. So I'm going to face off this piece of 12L14. I have to turn it down to 780 thousandths, and then we'll try it and see if it fits. I thought that was bigger than that. I've only got about 10 thousandths left to go, and I'll be at finished size. This is not a critical dimension, so I feel comfortable using the caliper. Alright, let's see if it fits. I'll take and cut a bevel on it. Now we'll drill a 1/2 inch hole through it. I'll set up for that and I'll bring you back. working around the tripod here and I keep bumping into it. Sorry about that. Now let's put a 1/4 inch drill in there. Drill a pilot hole. And then we'll go to 1/2 inch. Okay, I moved you out of the way. Hopefully I keep from bumping into it now. I'm taking, drill a 1/4 inch hole through here. Alright, that fits. All I have to do now is part it off, make it look pretty. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Got it faced off. We'll take and put a little bevel on that edge. We'll take and knock the burr off the inside edge. We're ready to roll. There it is. That should do the trick. Now I'm going to move the camera out and I'll show you how the setup looks in the lathe. Okay, I'm going to try and show you how this goes together. First thing I'm going to do is put my thread protector on. Take and slide that in there. Here's the bushing. The bushing goes in the tailstock. And the nut. Threads on. And tighten this up. And that'll pull the collet adapter in. And we're set. Let's see what it looks like running in here. See what it looks like running in here. That's going to wrap up this edition of Shark Bits. This just goes to show you that even an experienced machinist can run into a problem when working on a project. Although the drawbar is functional, I'm certainly not happy with it. And once I turn this camera off, I'm going to be making a new one. I'll see you in the next video.